Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Leslie presents. And now your host, Paul Leslie.
This is kind of like Deja Vu, because it was 5 years ago, back on the Radio Margaritaville days. I had a little digital recorder, and I was on a tour bus. This was at Chastain Park, and it was one of, I'm not just saying this, it was one of my favorite interviews that I'd ever done with a band, because it was lighthearted and fun, but it was also serious at the same time. But it's kind of like Deja Vu, because I'm back here with ALO again.
Same spot even?
No, it was at Chastain.
Oh, yeah.
And we're at Lakewood this time.
Yeah, right.
So, for those who maybe are being exposed to ALO for the first time, just like last time, I would like it if you guys could introduce yourselves.
Yes. My name's Lebo. I play guitar and do a little singing.
My name is David Brogan. I play drums and sing.
My name is Zach Gill, keyboardist, singer.
My name is Steve Adams. I play bass and do some singing as well.
All right.
I like how you said being exposed the first time, like there might be a vaccine for it or something.
What can you expect? Megan Rash. The urge to...
This is your first exposure.
burning.
Usually the rash comes from repeated exposure.
Yeah.
If a burning sensation happens when you urinate,
Do this. We'll tell you all about
Put on the
this.
first
It's gonna be
album,
okay.
track 3.
I'll tell you how to take care of yourself, just in case.
All right. Zach, could you just lean in a little?
Sure.
All right.
Lean in.
Lean in. Probably the girl who's trying to get in, right?
Is that like a Nextel?
This is Metro PCS. Anyways, let me turn this one off. We'll edit all this out.
Do text messages speak to you?
That's my nephew saying, "Hey, you."
Oh, that's your ring.
Hey, you.
Yeah. Okay. So the new album is called Man of the World, and it's an album dedicated to the spirit of creativity.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was interesting.
Not too many people probably read that line on the liner notes.
I read liner
That's
notes
great.
obsessively.
Yeah.
Whose idea was it to put that?
Mine it is, Zach.
Yeah.
But we all agreed.
Yeah.
It was a good dedication.
The spirit of creativity is sort of related to the spirit of Christmas past.
Yeah, it's
The
a
And we've dedicated the album.
One of the
It's like an
spirits.
offering.
There was one of many dedications, right? I mean, there were other dedications.
Well, there's thank yous, but that's the soul.
That's the only
That's
dedication.
the sole dedication.
There were others,
The muse.
but creativity was capitalized.
I'd really say that that's like an offering, you know?
Yeah.
Something you leave out for the
Goes.
for a spirit.
Goes to creativity past.
Cookies and milk for Santa Claus.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And
Like
man
it's like
of the world.
this is our cookies and milk.
Our offering to creativity, spirit.
Spirit of creativity.
Yeah, the spirit of creativity.
Thank you. It's like a little.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's yours now.
I think we sort of approached this record, well, we wanted to approach this record going into it with like a real sort of open, creative mindset. And I think we kept referring to that while we were making it, to keep it fun and creative. I don't know if that's where that, notion came from for you, Zach.
I always try to dedicate it. And my solo album, I dedicated it to the spirit of creativity and the art of galumphing.
Lowering yourself into a cave?
No, that's spelunking. Galumphing is the quality that when a kid has like excessive energy, and you'll watch them do things like maybe they'll you'll watch them just like following the line on the sidewalk like real meticulously, like for no real reason other than
OCD?
It's kind of like, well, some people call it that, but it's like a free play thing.
Yeah.
But
Right.
a lot of people believe that like the arts, even in general, come out of galumphing is kind of something you do when you have extra energy and extra time, and you're willing to just kind of play with your time.
Yeah.
Self-conscious.
Free play with time.
Yeah, free play with time, which I always thought
Based on sort of just where you up and find yourself.
which I always thought was a good thing.
So for those that, like I said earlier, this is the first exposure their first contact with ALO
I know,
over
deep already.
the powers of technology. How was ALO born?
It was born. How was it born?
It was born from friends, kid friends, who wanted to like create music, right?
Yeah, essentially lunking.
Yeah, it was
No,
kind of
like Galumphing.
Galumphing. Yeah, it was born out of Galumphing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dan and Steve and I all wanted to be in a band. We wanted to be in a band when we were young.
Seventh
We
grade.
all played instruments, and then when we got to UC Santa Barbara, we met Dave, and he wanted to be in a band too. And we all kind of had the same, you could, if you just practiced hard and you worked hard as a band, you could become successful and do it for a living.
Well, you three guys started in junior high school, right? Which is
Yeah.
a real prime time for Galumphing.
Yeah.
It's not quite as, so you don't have as much homework usually.
No, not as much
Right.
expectation.
It's not that serious.
Yeah.
We galumped all the way through college, though.
Well, yeah. Because,
There was even
magic.
galumping going on
High
last
school.
night.
That's the magic
Yeah,
of
it's
it.
true.
That's really true. Like the scene that we were in Santa Barbara, or in Isla Vista, which is a town, it was so fertile because you had a built-in audience of thousands of students, so you could play any time and have a big crowd. There was a great multiplex of band rehearsal spaces, so you had a big community of musicians doing it, and it really did feel like if you just did it and practiced, that you'd be successful. You know, there
Resources were all there.
it was a real outliers type of experience where it was just right place at the right time. If you had the drive, the environment was totally fertile for you to do your thing. That was a
Yeah,
big
because
part
we
of
went
this.
to, that's where we met Jack Johnson, was at college there, and it was much the same thing. We had a band, same thing, same rehearsal spaces.
Yeah, it was an easy situation. I mean, you could not
same
be,
parties.
you could just have the will to play, and you could get a gig.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's a DVD out, and it's called Jack Johnson in Concert, and it features you guys on it a bit.
Or no, the Weekend at the Greek is the one.
Weekend at the Greek.
Yeah.
You guys play a lot of really just incredible places, you know. And there's a lot of pictures I've seen of you guys playing some places that are incredible looking.
Mhm.
Is there one place that you guys can say in unison, that was the most awesome place that you got to play a gig?
I know one place. Should we all say it together?
At the same time.
I don't know, Red Rocks?
Highlander. Highlander, North Augusta.
In Augusta,
Georgia.
North Augusta, South Carolina.
Which I think was
Maybe the most memorable place ever.
a pretty incredible spot. And in a way, I think it almost inspired the birth of ALO, sort of like indirectly. Because we were out in Georgia living for the summer of '96 all together out there. And we got to like sort of take in some of the James Brown scene and the influence and all that, and came back to college wanting to like really play funk music and stuff. And I think that was a big thing for the beginning of ALO. We wanted to have like a funk orchestra. But I think that was discovered out here in Georgia. Sort of.
Yeah.
When you guys put out an ALO record, what is the process like for making the music? Because there's so many of you.
Yeah, that's changed over the years. So like lately it's been pretty collaborative where we try to go into a rehearsal space and just jam together. And then we kind of pick some of the best grooves and stuff and try to turn those into songs. There's that process. There's also the process where people will bring in pretty much completed songs and we kind of flesh them out as a band.
Yeah, those being the two, extremes, and then things in between even, where it's like half someone's song and half jam.
Yeah.
Half, yeah. But everything in between.
Yeah,
sort of
someone will
organic.
bring in a song idea and we'll jam on it. So yeah, there's sort of like a full spectrum.
The last two records too, we kind of gave ourselves a short amount of time to do them. So that's probably part that affects the process too. Like, here's 3 weeks. We're going to take 3 weeks in the studio, just to do as much as we can, get as far as we can, and that's been part of our process too. Sort of limiting our time.
I mean, that's even an interesting assumption that you can, that we've kind of like put into our process, that you could make a good album in 3 weeks.
Right.
it's not about, as opposed to, some bands like the Legend of Steely Dan, where it's like, that wouldn't be like their, the time, they're like, no, we're going to get in there, we're going to make everything meticulously. And I think our thing is like, let the mistakes happen if they're cool, and just think on your toes.
So when you put out a record, what would you say the end result? What do you think the goal is?
I think it's to capture like a moment in time, how people are feeling within that time and how people are playing. I think if you can capture it well, I think that's sort of the goal, I think, is to sort of capture that moment, because you're never going to get it again. It's sort of like it passes,
Almost feels like an album is like a step on a staircase or a rung on a ladder or whatever, like without it, it's all just sort of floating around. Like we used to have periods, we'd go long periods of time without making albums, and then these songs would get written and performed, and you get tired of it, just sort of disappear. But an album like organizes all that. Like, okay, here's like 10 or 12 songs, recorded and documented. It feels like it sort of completes, and then you can like step on that, and then the next album's another step, and you can keep like moving. Whereas without it, sometimes it feels like you're just swimming.
Well, speaking of moving, ALO's been around a while. How would you say that the band has evolved over the years? Because like if you listen to I forget the name of this album, but it has the Valentine's Day song on it.
Oh, Time Expander.
That's an indie release.
Really to change.
Yeah. I mean, each one of us affects it. Time affects it. And I think it just goes through the same changes musically that like anybody's life would go through,
Hey, that kind of relates to the last question a little bit too. Like, what's the album? The album is like where we're collectively at that time. Right? So like, like Time Expander is collectively where we were, at that time.
I think we wear our influences on our sleeves quite a bit, or did. I think maybe between like Time Expander and Fly Between Falls, it's sort of like what we're into musically kind of shows up on the album. Not so much anymore.
I mean, you can see it all. Like, you could definitely, what the really nice thing about having albums, as Dan said, is you can follow the evolution. I always really enjoyed that with other bands. Sometimes I wish there's some pretty great moments in our thing where we didn't make albums that are kind of like lost. So it almost makes it like, how'd they get from there to there? So there's definitely some lost recordings and tapes and albums that didn't.
There was definitely
happen.
something in between Time Expander and Fly Between
There was
Falls
a
that
lot
didn't get recorded.
recorded then.
Yeah.
There was a sound there.
That's true.
That was sort
It's
of
sort of like
in between
those times, those periods in your life when like your camera's broken or whatever. You just don't take a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
You
You know what it was?
You get
It was-
these
it was,
points in your life where it's like
And oftentimes those are the times where you're too
stuff that
busy
didn't get
to
recorded.
get a camera.
We started an album in it, like with Busy Killing Time and those tunes.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like one of those in between.
that was sort of a meta period.
Yeah, Time Expander was just a shadow of its original thing.
I thought of this question last night, and I think it's an interesting question. How would you define a band that is successful?
Yeah, there's lots of different levels of success. I mean, I met an old, kind of family friend not too long ago, and he was like, oh, what are you doing? I was telling him what I was doing, and then as he was like leaving, his parting thing was like, well, it's good to see you, and good to see you doing your thing, and you're undoubtedly touching lives, and that was sort of his thing. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. He was right, and so that's a success all on its own, right there. The other level of success is being successful enough to be able to keep doing that and have an adult life at the same time. There's a little bit of success there.
Just get involved. There's like your personal goals, that like what you personally want out of life, and sort of what you dream up and whatnot. And then there's like the band goals. You can kind of measure success next to those goals a little bit if you're like meeting those goals, I guess. But then there's also just like, for me, I know like a goal for me is just to sort of maintain a certain level of happiness, you know, and satisfaction in some way. So that's a pretty general goal. It's not like we want to be playing this club by this time or anything. It's more just like a personal thing. But I think goals are like an easy way to sort of
Measure your success.
measure it, I guess.
If you just try to rock as many people as you can, and hopefully you get enough back on that to just keep your thing going, so you can just keep doing it, grow a little bit. Mm-hmm. Not too fast.
I totally saw a thing on TV the other day where the Red Hot Chili Peppers were really young, and they like asked them if they felt successful. And it was a very similar thing, you know. It was just like, this, you know, what is success? We were successful when we were kids. Like we put together a band, and like lots of other kids were able to put together a band,
Totally.
you know. And like, you know, it's all these different moments, you know. It's very, very personal,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But hopefully, it sure does help at night to sleep when you feel successful.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the feeling of feeling unsuccessful is daunting.
Yeah.
I mean, when we put on a good show, and you can really tell, everyone walks off stage and everyone kind of agrees, you know, that was a good set or a good show. It's like, that feels successful to me. And it's such a micro moment in the whole grand scheme of things. But yeah, that's sort of those are validating moments.
You're listening to our interview with ALO on the Paul Leslie Hour.
Well, I have two more questions. What is the best part about being in ALO?
The camaraderie.
That's what came to my mind too. Actually, it sounds kind of cheesy, but I think it's true. Like a lot of the other projects I play in, like don't have the same like old friends, family kind of feeling that ALO has. I think that really is one of the things that's most special about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not very business or it's not very professional. I mean, in a good way, you know. I mean, like everyone's real, just kind of comfortable. Sometimes that's bad too, you know. Like it hurts your feelings,
Yeah.
because you're not afraid to say things or something. But it's personal, you know. It's real, like life. It's alive.
I think what I like about it too is that it's a real like sort of band process, sort of like a traditional band process, like very collaborative. Well, I don't know how traditional that is, but like it feels very like democratic and collaborative, and everyone gets a say in something, and, as opposed to maybe a band where it's like there's a leader, you know. I think that's a real special thing for this band. We've been able to maintain that sort of over many hurdles and a long period of time, and still feel good about it. And I think the friendship, makes that possible too. So.
Well, my last question. Do you guys have any parting words of wisdom?
Partying?
Get back in school.
Yes. Stay off drugs.
That's what James Brown would
Make music number 2.
That's what he told us. Make music number 2. Get back in school.
Finish school.
We were in college still, and we were thinking about quitting.
Don't do music
And
professionally.
doing a band professionally. He said make music number 2 and stay in school.
back.
We weren't thinking about quitting.
Yeah.
Kind of. Like,
Quitting. You guys were thinking about quitting college?
Crossed our minds.
We were in Georgia, across their
Like,
minds.
we could just stay out here and like,
Georgia's got some
The Highlander was so magical.
yeah.
Yeah, the summer, we always talk about it. The summer of '96 when we all moved to Georgia was like a real turning point, I think, in all our lives. It was kind of just an interesting moment. A lot of things changed forever after that.
What would it have been like if we all would have stayed there?
Maybe
We probably had another 3 months in us, and we all just.
I know.
we might have all got like strung out or something.
Yeah.
I think someone told me
Mushroom people.
this bit of advice about just relationships in general, but I think it applies to the band too, to being in a band, but to not take it too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Just to not overthink it and not get too down, or it's good just to sort of appreciate it and enjoy it, and as long as all that's kind of flowing, I think it's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find out more about ALO at alomusic.com. What does ALO stand for? I'm not going to tell you. Figure it out on your own.
I like that.
ALOmusic.com. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Part of the mystery.
Thank you.
Mystery.